Hi, I'm Dr. Duke Pesta. Today I am talking again with Alex Newman about what I consider to be a watershed moment in the pushback against Fed Ed and all of the nasty business that's been going on in our government schools. It is a special edition of the New American Magazine, and it is entitled Rescuing Our Children. I am joined by the primary author, as I mentioned, Alex Newman, who's done just all the heavy lifting on this particular issue, with some really great input from Israel Wayne, a remarkable homeschool advocate. We've got a really good crew here. Alex, thanks for joining me today, and talk a little bit about this special edition and what its aims and ambitions are.
Thank you so much, Duke. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you so much for your contributions to this special report. I think this is going to be a turning point in American history. After years of thinking about this, you and I and the other people who collaborated on this, Israel and Dr. E. Ray Moore, Lieutenant Colonel E. Ray Moore, we figured out that the reason why the establishment is so cocky, why they're so confident about their future success is because, if you think about it, it's been obvious all along. They have 85% or more of our children sitting for 5 days a week in a government school, receiving massive doses of propaganda, indoctrination, brainwashing. And they've had 100 years of scientific, psychological experiments to perfect this. And so what we concluded is that over the long run, all these battles that we care about, and I don't care what your issue is, viewer, maybe you're all about gun rights, maybe you want to stop abortion, maybe you want to lower taxes, fight socialism, preserve our national sovereignty and our independence, protect our free speech, all of these issues that unite Americans, that really define Americans. We're going to lose on every single one if current trajectories continue. If you look at the data, most young people today have a more favorable impression of socialism than capitalism. Most young people today are willing to sacrifice our gun rights. The overwhelming majority of kids graduating from public high schools, even if they were raised by two Christian parents and went to church every week, are leaving their churches, are leaving their synagogues. Why is this happening? Well, the reason is very simple, because they're being indoctrinated by the government. So what we do in this special report, we expose it all, the sexualization of the children, the indoctrination, the poor academics, the deliberate dumbing down of the children, and this can all be documented. I encourage people to get a copy of this. And then maybe even more importantly, we show parents what they can do about it. We have the ultimate trump card here, no pun intended, and that is our ability, our established right in all 50 states to opt out of this system, to yank our children out and to give them a world-class education, whether that be through homeschooling, through a private school, a good Christian school in your community, through Freedom Project Academy that both you and I work with, Dr. Duke. There's just all these options today that parents have. And we argue that if we're going to save our country, if we're going to save our churches, if we're going to save our freedoms, the solution is going to have to address this education subject head on. This, I think, is the most important issue facing the American people right now. And so that's kind of an overview of what we did.
Yeah, let me expand on a couple of those points you made. Look, Mom and Dad America, let me talk directly to you now. I know that you think that your kids are smarter than this, or that you've given them faith that will allow them to overcome this. I know that you think that you're giving them a godly influence at home, or that you're exposing them to things beyond the public school. I see your kids the moment they head off of the high school campus. I get your kids at the university as freshmen and sophomores. I got to tell you, unilaterally, it's true. These kids are social justice warriors. They don't know what the word means. And if you ask them if they thought they were politically progressive, most of them would say no. Yet look at how they answer questions about God, about guns, about country, about borders, about trade, about economic systems. These kids favor socialism, but they don't know what it is. They can't define it. They can't meaningfully talk about it. These kids, government school kids, kids who go to public schools, and alas, even kids that I'm finding out that go to our completely failed Catholic schools, and many of our failing Christian schools, private schools now, have bought into this notion as well. The idea that you can put a kid in a private school and they're going to be notably different than public school kids, that is not true 60, 70% of the time. So here's the problem. We, as Alex said, this is not hyperbole, this is not exaggeration. We are losing our kids, not because they are consciously being educated critical thinkers who have critically rejected capitalism, a Republican form of government, national sovereignty, the protection of the unborn. This is not something that they have critically come to. This is not a decision that they have worked through in their minds and committed through long, agonizing thought. This is something that's been handed to them, increasingly in the middle schools and the elementary schools, this chain of thinking. And so by the time they get to be 17 and 18 and they walk on a college campus, I said, before we started filming this, I said to Alex, look, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, kids who went to public schools, kids who even went to Christian schools, generally graduated more or less aware of the Christian ethos of America. They tended to be pro-country. They loved their country. They were patriotic. They tended to be pro-God if they weren't even specific about that. It was in the air. We taught kids to be part of our culture, our tradition. But in the 30, 40 years since, we are teaching kids to be opposed to our culture, our country, our God, our nation, our system of government. And so in the same way that kids 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 years ago mostly graduated as Christians and believed loosely in the Christian ideal, now they believe in the opposite of that. And as you pointed out, in a generation, maybe two, if this doesn't fix, we will have lost every major aspect of this. The republic will be gone. Socialism will be the norm. Greater public federal influence over every aspect of our lives. The educational system will become more ideological and more focused on indoctrination, not on critical thinking. If you want to push back about this, start here with this special report. This special report puts a lot of information on the table in a palatable, digestible way that's going to help you begin to push back. Alex, talk a little bit more deeply about a few of the articles in here, the ones that really strike you as really, really important.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Duke. And, the expose of the schools, a lot of people think this is kind of a recent phenomenon, and recently it has gotten much, much worse. But one of the things we do in this article is show you that the people who designed this system, and nobody wants to hear this. I know there's all kinds of really great people who are teaching in the schools. I know a lot of them, most of them homeschool their own kids. That ought to tell you something. But, nobody wants to hear that this system was designed to do what it's doing. Nobody wants to hear that we were duped as a people, as a nation, but we were, and we provide the proof in here. So we have a whole article dealing with the history here. We show how America went from being the most literate society on earth, the most well-educated society on earth, the most prosperous, the freest society on earth, to now just plummeting in the international rankings. I mean, we are now a joke by international standards when it comes to math, when it comes to literacy. According to the government's own data, you have only 13% of Americans of adult Americans are proficient in reading. You have places in America like Washington, D.C., where the government's data shows that 2/3 of the adult population is functionally illiterate. They couldn't read the back of a potato chips bag to save their life. And this was all by design. We show you the people who did this. We show you what the people who did this wrote in their own essays, in their own books, in their own words. And, it's indisputable. So I hope people will get a copy of this. And, I think it's important to emphasize, too, I think for a lot of parents, there's a kind of a fear. I've always sent my kids to a public school, and I went to a public school. What would it be like to leave? And, I think it's important to note that we live in an amazing time right now. We live at a time where it's never been easier for parents to take back control of their children, for parents to provide a world-class education to their children. There are now so many resources out there for homeschool moms and dads. There's whole curricula if that's what you want, right? If you want a prepackaged thing, there's every kind you could possibly imagine: Christian, Jewish, libertarian, conservative, classical education, everything you could ever want, and then a lot more is available. Go to one of these homeschool conventions and you'll see what I'm talking about. The options, the availability of alternatives is just incredible right now. And the opportunities are incredible. One of the things that we do in one of the articles, Israel Wayne, who is a very well-known author, national speaker, a leader in the homeschool movement, he wrote an article about the benefits of homeschooling. And what you'll see is that even according to the government's own data, again, homeschool kids, even if their parents don't even have a high school degree, massively outperform the victims of public schools on even the government's own standardized tests. So it'll bring you a stronger family. It'll bring you better academics. You'll protect the spiritual development, the moral development of your children. There's so many benefits. There's no way we could get to them all in this one short video. We talk some about, the real foundations of education for Christians, for Jews, for people who just, believe believe in the Judeo-Christian ethos, the kind of a biblical worldview. The understanding about education for 2,000 years has always been very clear. It's a very recent phenomenon, this idea that parents should surrender their children to the government for so-called education. I mean, this is just a radical concept. It's unique in human history, right? I mean, until the Prussians tried it, it was just almost inconceivable that the government should educate our children. And yet now it's accepted as the norm in America. It doesn't have to be that way. The results are catastrophic. We can see it all around us: the school shootings, the abortions, the collapse of morality, the drugs, the gangs, the radicalism, the kids out protesting in the streets demanding civilian disarmament, and this is all the inevitable consequence of this mistake. But we can fix it. We have an incredibly powerful weapon as Americans, as parents, and that is the ability to opt out of the system and get a kids a good education. And so we conclude in the last word with just, we borrowed a metaphor from Lieutenant Colonel E. Ray Moore, who founded the Exodus Mandate and the Frontline Ministries. He calls for kind of a Dunkirk operation to rescue America's children. In World War II, when British troops were stuck on the beach on the verge of being destroyed by the National Socialist armies, the entire British population got together for this massive rescue operation, right? Pleasure boats and yachts and sailboats and fishing boats and, every kind of vessel that was available crossed the channel, rescued these troops, brought them back to Britain so that they wouldn't be annihilated by the National Socialists. We need something like that now for our children. We need, even if you don't have your own kids in a public school system, if you're a grandparent, if you're an aunt or an uncle, you can do something, right? You can help support a parent who might need help, a single mom. Maybe you can take their kids 2 days a week. Maybe you can help them with a little bit of funding, a little bit of money to pursue an alternative. If you're a pastor or a rabbi or a priest or some sort of religious leader, you have a duty to get involved in this fight. You're going to lose your congregation. You're going to lose your church. You're supposed to be a shepherd of your flock. And, I don't want to make people feel guilty. I don't want to make people feel bad, but I want people to realize how crucial this is. You are allowing your people, because you don't want to offend somebody. Maybe you have some public school teachers in your congregation. You don't want to speak out about what's going on there, but you have a duty to do that. And from your own self-interested perspective, if you don't tackle this issue, the numbers show, the Nehemiah Institute did some studies on this. The overwhelming majority of your young people are going to leave your church. Okay, so that's the situation now. We're going to lose our country. We're going to lose our families. We're going to lose our freedom if we don't take this battle seriously. But now we have a tool to help win this battle. So get yourself a copy of this. We have a special promotional code right now where we'll waive shipping and handling, which normally costs us quite a bit of money. You can get a sample issue. So you can get a print copy of this for yourself. You can read through it. You can see, if this doesn't motivate you to action, then I don't know what to tell you. But get a sample issue of this. You can use the discount code EDUCATION19. Get yourself a copy, read through it cover to cover, and if it moves you, if you recognize this as a valuable tool to rescue our country, to rescue our children, order 100 copies or order 1,000 copies. Give them to your pastor, give them to your doctor, give them to your neighbors, give them to the elders at your church, give it to whoever you need to, the opinion molders in your community. Go to a homeschool convention, get yourself a booth and give these out. We need all hands on deck here. And again, even if you don't have your own children at risk right now, even if you did the right thing and homeschool them or put them in a good Christian school, even if you did everything you could to protect them and now they're gone and now they're doing what they need to be doing, you can still help.
Absolutely. The special report is a Bible, a handbook of how to push back, what the problems are, and what can be done about them.